YouTube, what's going on? In the last video, we made this HTML and CSS resume. In this video, we're going to use VueJS to change that HTML to make it more easier to use and easier to read from another programmer point of view. Now let's get into it. We start with putting a div tag around everything. We do that. It's very easy because it just tells Vue where to put the data, and it'll make it easier for you to use later. So the first thing that we did was make a div tag or element and give it an ID. I just chose work experience view because I'm doing the work experience section of the HTML CSS resume that we made in the past video. Now down here is where we really come to view. This is in the JavaScript file, and we start by making a variable named, I just named it working experience data because again we're in the work experience section, and then we do an equal sign with new view. So this will start our VueJS method here, and to be able to write to this ID or this div area with an ID work experience view, we put in this little EL, which is short for element, and grabbing the div element, and then we just put a hashtag work experience view in double quotes. Now the hashtag goes in because it's grabbing an ID, where if it was a class it would be a period, and so on. Now under that we have our data, and this kind of contains all the data that we'd want to grab for this entire section. And it starts, or I started it with company names. Now if we look, we have company names, and then inside company names we have Allen-Tech. And next to Allen-Tech is also Allen-Tech. Now why are they both the same? Well, they work differently, but they have the same name inside them. So this purple Allen-Tech is what we're going to be able to call to be able to print out this green lettering Allen-Tech Inc. Now in the green, I have all the formatting that I want. I have a comma, space, and a period with capitals and everything else, which if you notice on the printed side actually comes out to this Allen-Tech over here. Now to make this Allen-Tech show up over here, we have to go back to our HTML. Now over here we have our H3 element, and inside there's a double, I call them squiggly brackets. There's double squiggly brackets with company names dot Allen-Tech. And what that's doing is it's coming over to our view area, and it's looking at, okay, we're in the data section, we're going to grab some data. When we go in here, we're first going to look at company names, and then the next thing we're going to look at is this dot Allen-Tech, which is where it comes down to Allen-Tech, and it'll find the value that's associated to it, and it prints out Allen-Tech Inc. Here it is, right here. Perfect. Then we go to the next one. Same kind of thing happening here. This p tag is grabbing position title .it and eng. So eng is my short for engineering. And then we come down. Okay, so it's going to look for position title as our first little heading here. We come into our view. It finds position title, and then it finds IT and engineering. And then it prints out the value associated to it, which is IT and engineering intern. Here it is, print out for us perfectly. Now the reason Vue is useful and important to use is because if we had to write all of this in the regular HTML, which we did do in the last video, this way is much easier because we're able to just call it from one spot. Now why that is important is because if you have to use the same word, say this IT engineering intern, this IT engineering intern shows up here too. We have our little squiggly brackets that's got position title .it and engineering, and then we come down here and we could do the exact same call to one value, and that's going to grab the exact same value, and that gives us our second one as well. Now why that's useful is if you have to do that in 5-6 different times, it would be tedious to have to go through the HTML constantly, find each one and then change it, where in this case we could just change, say we wanted this to be just IT intern, we could delete /engineering, let the page load here, we go back down, and it changes it to IT intern for both of these now. So you can make that across the entire page. You could do however you want with that. The data section is able to hold much data as you want it to be. I have dates with 3 different dates in it, 2018, 2019, 2020, and that gets all 3 of these. I'm able to use it for this one, which actually has 2 subheadings in it, the internship details first year, and then we go down to the first bullet and the second bullet. And that grabs all these different bullets that we see here on the side. It's very useful for if you want to make it look structurally okay, or structurally easy to use or look at, and make it usable for iteration. It's very good to use for that. There's a bunch of different other implements to it that are much more, I wouldn't say complicated, but I would find much more useful in the future, and maybe I'll go over those eventually in another video, but I will be having videos about every week. And if you didn't see my HTML CSS resume video before, I would recommend going and watching that if you're a little confused on what I'm talking about here, because this whole resume that we made, it'll change the formatting here for us, but it'll make it look, or I walk you through how I did each parts of these with all different CSS grids, and how these are in different rows and columns. This is another grid down here, and the different steps to links. And thank you for watching the video. Have a great day, everybody.